Hello and welcome to the podcast for the School of Politics and International Affairs at the University of Illinois Springfield. I'm your host, Craig. I am an online coordinator within the College of Public Affairs and Education, and just excited to continue this series as we talk to the faculty of the department. And so you can get a sense of, if you come to study at UIS, the type of faculty members that you're going to be working with, but also if you are an alumnus, maybe you are trying to see what the department or the school has been up to since you left as well. And I love being able to highlight that there's such a diverse area of expertise when it comes to the faculty. So today I get to talk to Dr. Isabel Skinner, and she is one of the newest of our faculty members here at UIS, having just recently finished her PhD program at the University of Arizona. She really highlights and is studying areas of American politics, and in particular immigration and minority issues as well. So I'm excited to talk to her about all of that. Her research area of interest are American politics, in particular immigration issues and issues of minority politics as well. So I'm excited to dive into some of that and talk to her about the types of courses that she teaches and the type of ongoing research that she is doing. But I'm going to go ahead and get right into the interview now with Dr. Isabel Skinner. It's so wonderful today to get a chance to talk to Isabel Skinner, Dr. Isabel Skinner, about her research interest and what she does here at UIS. So I think we'll start right there, Dr. Skinner. What is your kind of research area of political science, and what is it that you like to get involved in?
Absolutely. So I study American politics within political science. We've got a great representation of folks in different subfields of political science here in our department. So I study American politics, but within that, I study mostly topics related to immigration and other topics related to what we could call minority politics, including race and ethnicity politics. And then the method that I use to study those things is really rooted in political psychology. So understanding individual level behavior and the way that we think about and understand political problems. Yeah.
That's really so interesting. I mean, right off the bat, I think about the sort of migrant crisis that we hear in the news media every single day, and how, from a political psychology standpoint, it might not even necessarily be impacting the daily lives of individuals, but you see that that issue is becoming more salient in terms of like political polls and what is going to be the most important to you going into the 2024 election and everything else. So I imagine that there is kind of a wealth of either research being done right now or just things that you get to kind of nerd out about, right? As far as that's concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a salient topic. It's one of the top policy issues that Americans consistently report on polling. But as you can also imagine, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, all think that this is really important, but for very different reasons. And so
Hmm.
that is a theme that we see. Also, from my research and a lot of other folks' research, we know that immigration attitudes are symbolic. So they're not necessarily based off of reality or what's going on. They're more based off of emotions and other reactions to information. But I will say that for the people who are experiencing this most directly, this is a humanitarian crisis for them. And so yeah, we've got folks who see this on the news every day, American citizens, and they have one perspective. We have people who have a closer view to this who live along the border. We also see that, Americans who are not near borders are very concerned. But then I also try and bring in the voices of people who are more directly affected also, including refugees and groups that are we don't hear from as much for obvious reasons.
And I think that that's such a huge element of this particular issue is that, and others. I mean, you mentioned things like minority politics as well. I feel like we take out the human element so often when we think of people as others and people that aren't ourselves or don't have the same shared experiences. And so it's good that social scientists are trying to gather that data and that research to hopefully better inform us when we talk about things like policy, but also just like you said, discussing refugees or how this is a humanitarian issue, less, even more so than a political issue. Because
Right.
when we get into politics, it just seems like it's so easy to become separated into our teams or into our individual camps and then forget that there are hundreds of thousands or millions of human lives that are wrapped up into a particular political issue.
Yeah, definitely. Also, even teaching about these kind of subjects is itself politicized, which is really interesting because I try as best as I can to provide lots of different perspectives and to always teach my students how to get reliable sources of information. But at the same time, even I recognize that even as I do that to the best of my ability, that the subjects themselves have come under some scrutiny. So that's really challenging, but also really exciting to be doing something that is receiving that kind of attention for sure.
So, can you talk to me a bit about your educational background, where you went to school, where you pursued your graduate studies, and then also why these particular issues? Why was that something that you decided amongst all the realms, the different areas of political science, that you wanted to study American politics and more specifically things like minority politics and immigration issues?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to make things a little bit clearer, I'll tell you more of a short chronological story. So I went to the College of Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina for undergrad, and that's where I met my partner and now husband. And so we've been together, growing up together for a while now. But when I was at the College of Charleston, I learned a lot about different global issues and US issues. I actually was not doing so hot in calculus, and I ended up taking a course halfway through the semester on post-colonial migration in Europe, and it really captured my imagination. After school, both my partner and I were able to serve as volunteers abroad. He served in Mexico in Tepoztlan, with a global sanitation project, and I served in Argentina in Opera Misiones, and I worked with a women's group that talked about violence and feminism issues. And we both became fluent in Spanish. We learned Spanish in school, but being immersed is way better if you have any experience with that. So when I came home from that experience, I volunteered in my hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina, at an international house. And there I got to meet people coming to my hometown from all over the world, lawyers who did pro bono work for them, people who were teaching English and doing programming. And I just got really into that issue as kind of a community member. But I knew even from undergrad that I wanted to go to grad school. But one of my professors kindly advised me to take some time to figure things out. And so that's kind of what I figured out. Another thing that was important to me as an undergraduate was my involvement in the LGBT community, which I'm a part of. And so that was really big in my student organizing life. But I wanted to take what I learned as somebody who's a member of a minority group and apply that in compassion and an understanding about other groups, other minority groups who could, maybe use allies, or we should at least be paying attention to. Immigration also is a really consistent top issue, as we've already discussed. So in terms of, you always kind of want to put yourself out of a job if you're studying politics and problems, but this is something I don't expect will go away or something in our lifetime. So it's really important to track. One more quick story. When I started graduate school at University of Arizona in Tucson, that's a place that's really near the border. So migration is like a part of culture there. But also, when I began graduate school was right when the travel ban or the refugee ban, Muslim ban, the executive order from the Trump administration in 2017 was taking place. And this seemed like a big deal, and a lot of my dissertation is about this policy. What I didn't know then is that this is just a symptom of kind of like a larger trend in
Mhm.
immigration where policies are increasingly restrictive towards humanitarian immigrants like asylum seekers and refugees. And so that is a big issue and challenge right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, these are so many issues that are going to be front and center as we go into the true meat of the 2024 election as well. That's interesting that you talk about your immersive experiences. And I want to kind of take a bit of a tangent here to talk about how you feel maybe students could take some value away from things like a study away program where you can kind of step aside and go in and be immersed into a different country, or even within here in the United States. I should mention, just as an online coordinator, what traditionally we do kind of on our end of that is to be able to talk you through the types of courses that might be able to work in a different country and then transfer back into UIS. And then that way it's sort of a seamless. So it's not like you are just taking classes that won't then count towards the courses that you're needing here. But I just wonder if you could talk a bit more about your thoughts on students taking an opportunity to be immersed in a different culture like you were.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have the opportunity, you should definitely do that, whether that is formal, the longer the better, maybe through like a study abroad or volunteerism, or even travel just to get out of your regular routine, rely on different folks, understand that the knowledge that they bring that can really be life-changing. Learning a different languages also really changes the way that your brain works, and there's a lot of research about that. But it's just an incredible thing. It was very tough. I mean, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done for sure. But it's, I've gotten to travel extensively as well in my life, and it's one of my favorite things to do. But I definitely think even within your community to talk to groups or people that you wouldn't normally talk to kind of go out of your way like that, it can really just open up your world. And yeah, it will seriously alter the course of your life. I would completely recommend it if you have the opportunity. And yeah, it's so great that we have people who are really experienced and maximizing that for students so that it can only help them in their academic journey as well.
Absolutely. Can you run me through some of the courses? I know you've been in the midst of, because you're a new faculty member here, which I want to talk about, by the way, but because you're a new faculty member here, you are developing a lot of courses, but you're also stepping in and teaching some additional courses as well that might be like core curricular courses or whatever the case may be. But can you kind of walk us through the types of courses you've been teaching here at UIS?
Absolutely. So, some of the core courses that I am teaching are the American political system, which is super exciting. I'm teaching that right now. So during an election year where there's just so much news and really interesting developments all the time. And that's mostly for, it's a 200 level. So, I have a lot of freshmen and sophomores, but also people from across the university in that class. And then I also teach closing seminar, an honors closing seminar, which is for seniors that are political science majors. And that's really rewarding. We create a full research paper. So that's something that is super exciting because all the students end up writing different papers. So those are the core classes that I teach, but I also have developed some classes based on my expertise and interests. I have a US-Mexico border politics class, which is like, I'm really passionate about that. I love that course. I teach a version of race and ethnicity politics through an existing course, which I'm really excited to offer, called African Americans in American Politics. And that's a super exciting course that emphasizes Black Americans, but also talks about, what is race and ethnicity more broadly. That's a great class as well. I also teach women in politics, which is an existing course, but I developed it with all fresh content, and we focus on women, but also gender minorities. And yeah, there's a whole lot to cover in that class as well. And I've just developed a new first year seminar, so that will attract students from across the university. And that class is called Deconstructing Citizenship. And so we're going to look at, the way civil rights and liberties are created, like the 14th Amendment and protections of groups. But then we'll also talk about struggles and how different groups have felt like they were second class citizens and how they've sort of overcome that, or fought back and struggled with that, and then how students can become more active and engaged citizens. So I'm super excited about that course, which I will begin offering in the fall.
I love that you're, like, of course, you're still talking to those juniors and seniors as well, but that a lot of your coursework falls into some of those general education categories, which allow for a really broad audience of freshmen and sophomores that might be asking, like, why do I have to take these social science
Yeah.
classes? And I always think that that's kind of fun because then you can really sort of grab those students and maybe show them in a way that they don't think that they interact with politics, that really, truly, this is an important social science, but also like an important thing to just sort of be aware of, especially going into an election year as well, even if they're not political science students.
Yeah, absolutely. And in general, when I talk to people, sometimes people are intimidated when I say that I'm a political scientist or they ask me what I study. And I totally understand that. A lot of people are turned off by just the temperature and the types of rhetoric that are used. I mean, I study that stuff, so I'm interested in it. But also, I look at the polling and I completely understand that. But as well, I think it's important to demonstrate and give life experience showing students, proving to them that you can have positive, productive conversations, even about politics, even about controversial things. And like, we're going to be okay. Everyone is safe. Everything is going to be all right. And then another thing is that even when people say, like, oh, I don't really care about politics, sometimes they say, well, politics cares about you.
Oh, that's
Um,
great response to that. I like that.
yeah, exactly. So, changing the perspective a little bit of like, I think especially for minority groups as well, the calculus is a little bit different and there's sometimes more at stake for some of these questions. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I think it's really important we talk about really heavy subjects a lot, but to kind of add some hope into that as well, and talk about, well, now what, what do we do with that information now that we've got it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think now it's even harder. Like I find myself as someone that really is interested in politics, that it's hard sometimes to find the hope in a lot of these issues that are going on. I mean, when I was in the department coming up as a student, I was definitely an Obama brat. I was volunteering for his campaign, and that whole campaign was a campaign focused
Right.
around the idea of hope. And
Right.
so it's so interesting now to like see what's going on in the world and the evolution of all these different issues and whatnot. So certainly it's good that you're out there fighting the good fight for that. I like that quite a bit. I do want to mention that you're one of the newest faculty members, although now you're much more seasoned than Dr. Bolte, who has started as well. So you are a seasoned vet compared to him. But can you talk about coming into UIS and Springfield in general, and especially working with your colleagues within the School of Politics and International Affairs?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're so happy to have Brandon Bolte join us and fulfill another area that we really need to pay attention to. I love my colleagues. I have to say, beyond my students, which is like, why I'm here, that's what makes me love this job so much. And just genuinely, my colleagues are wonderful people and they're all doing really interesting things. I think we get along, we do a lot of kind of democratic things where we all put in our perspective on decisions that we make. And I feel like they've really supported me and put a lot of trust in me already. I'm going to be starting as the first newly elected there's a brand new position that we created where I'll be the director of undergraduate students starting next year. And so that's a position that will work with our amazing staff people to just increase our programming and have kind of more of a point person, just to make sure that undergraduate students are know that there's a community for them. And then Dr. Matt Garris will be the director for graduate students. And so I think that that should be really great, but we have a great combination of faculty and staff in our department, and they've been really welcoming. I would also say that Springfield is a really different place than other places I've lived, and I really like it. I really like the size of the community. I like the pace of life a lot. And I've been involved more in the past few months, just getting involved into the community. So I was asked to present for the Springfield Citizens Club on a panel about Springfield's immigrant stories. So we had folks who are immigrants to the US and to Springfield share their stories. And then I provided some kind of background information about immigration issues sort of more generally. And Dr. Brooke Deppenbush in legal studies also worked on that panel for part two. And that was a great experience. I also try and join the diversity centers events a lot, like the Black History Month programming, Women's History Month programming, Hispanic Latino Month programming, and they're doing wonderful things. So I see a really vibrant community. Yeah, we're small, but there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that, it's really certainly there are, and usually when I have a student who's coming in and they're talking to me about UIS and different things about the university, I often talk to them about, like, it really depends on what you're kind of looking for in a university. And we are a small public liberal arts institution. If you want to go to a Research One school, like our sister school in Champaign-Urbana, that makes a whole lot of sense. It's going to be sort of a world of difference in terms of the experience, but we have such amazing faculty here. I think that the big selling point for us is that you do get to work directly with those faculty because it is a smaller program, and you get to really get to know them. And nothing against TAs. I'm sure you were a TA at some point, and
Yes.
I bet you were really good at it. But, the fact that we don't necessarily utilize TAs and that you're really being taught by the faculty the whole way through, including starting in some of those gen ed classes where at other places that might not necessarily be the case. So I think it's really cool that we get that experience and that exposure. I guess going into that, and you've provided some really great pieces of advice, things like become immersive and be able to go into these different cultures and maybe do some kind of study abroad. You also mentioned that you work with places like the Diversity Center. I think we could also tell students, that prospective students, and especially, that they should get involved on campus and go into these different groups. I know that in the past we've had very active political groups on campus, the College Democrats, College Republicans. We had Campus Greens for quite a while. And so those are always opportunities as well. But to be able to really get involved in that way. And then I think also you mentioned what I love about being a political science major is that you do have these respectful conversations and you can disagree without being disagreeable. I think that political science students in particular, because they are people that are interested in this, not just as a sport, like my team has to win over your team, but really as how it impacts people's lives, the long-term effects of some of these policies and things like that, that I really do think you're able to reach across that aisle, I guess, in class or whatever the case may be, and really discuss some of these issues. So all of that being said, are there other pieces of advice that you would give to a prospective student, whether that be an undergrad or a graduate student coming into a program?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for tying those all those ideas together. That's I totally agree. Get involved on campus. I would also shout out the Model Illinois government and the Model UN are two programs that political science majors are involved in that are excellent. And there's just so many countless opportunities on campus. There's events all the time, opportunities for growth and leadership. But also I would say in terms of studying, I always tell people that they should figure out what works for them. So don't force this is coming from psychology too, like don't force yourself to do something that is going to grade against your own personalities and preferences. If you, like for myself, I have to write everything down in like a physical agenda. And I do, and that's how I remember everything. And if I don't have it, then like it's not going to happen. And so, yeah, I use technology, but I also use analog sources too. I take breaks. I try to assess my mood and what is going to work. Sometimes you can't force certain things, so you have to create time and space to just allow yourself. Especially when I started grad school, I tried to make myself work like 24/7, and that wasn't working for me. But with the help of a therapist, and taking care of my mental health, I started to realize that I could actually be just as productive and still kind of have a life and be like a happier person. And
Mm.
so that helped me be more successful, and more well adjusted throughout the rest of my career as a PhD student. And now, as a faculty member, in many ways, my life is much easier than as a PhD student. But, grad school is an excellent opportunity to test yourself and challenge yourself as well. But I think you should follow the advice of my undergraduate advisor, too, which is, timing is everything. And think about the money, too. Like, everything is important. You shouldn't force yourself to do something that is not going to work for you just because there's pressure on you. It should be customizable to you. And I also definitely recommend that people stay in touch with their mental and physical health as well, because nothing's gonna happen if you don't take care of, number one, yourself. So that's super important. That's kind of like a whole bunch of random advice, but the things that I feel like I end up telling students the most.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. I love the particular focus on mental health and then also just making sure that everything is the right timing for yourself when you're getting into things and not trying to rush things. I mean, my own undergraduate story, I thought for sure, and I won't name the institution since I don't want it to seem like I'm uh, doing that. But like I had a housing deposit somewhere that was a 6-year program, and it was you do 3 years as an undergrad and then 3 years of law school. And I think looking back and reflecting that coming out of high school, I felt like lawyer was the job you do when you're interested in politics. And now here I am. I'm technically not in a way using my degree because I'm an academic advisor, but there's also no real program for being an academic
Yeah,
advisor. It's just that I
yeah.
wanted to go back and help students. So if you continue to make progress and move in that direction, then I think you'll see a lot of potential doors opening up. And I love the spotlight on mental health as well. I should mention that part of being a student here is that we do have the counseling center as well. That is something that is accessible to students. And I always tell students that I can say that the counseling center is free. It's a bit of a misnomer because you are paying fees that help support the
Right.
counseling center. So really you're paying for it already, but you need to utilize those types of services when you're here too. So just great to get a chance to talk to you today and to be able to get all these bits of information and pieces of advice. And I think we're so happy to have you and so glad to have you. It's funny. So when I went through the master's program, American politics was definitely my area of expertise or what I was trying to become an expert in and political psychology as well. So I had
Awesome.
Dr. Miller on my closure exercise, and then also Dr. Transu, kind of from both of those perspectives and getting into those campaigns and elections. So I'm looking forward to all the conversations that you and I are going to have in the future about all of this great stuff, because I love all the areas that you study as well. So wonderful to get a chance to chat with you today. Is there anything that you wanted to add in closing before we wrap this up?
I guess just I would mention also that I feel super lucky to be collaborating with Dr. Transu on some other big picture political psychology pieces. We're looking into issues of political tolerance. So this is like a classic question, but we're adding kind of a fresh take on it, a fresh spin on it. And so it's really great that I feel like I'm in a place now where I can be mentored by someone who's, an expert in the field, and then moving forward, work with that and hopefully inspire the next generation of folks who will continue that kind of work. So that's really cool to have that. That's just another benefit that I was hoping when I started, my journey here, but it's really coming to pass, and it's just very exciting and rewarding. But thank you so much for these excellent questions, and really enjoyed talking to you. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about this stuff too. Yeah, anytime.
Absolutely. Well, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll see you. Just wonderful to get a chance to speak to her today. I really enjoyed that quite a bit, and excited to be able to get the opportunity to talk to one of our newest faculty members as we continue to move forward here in our series of highlighting all of the faculty members within the School of Politics and International Affairs. And I should say that she provided some great insights into prospective students. And if you do have any questions about UIS and the School of Politics and International Affairs in particular, please feel free to reach out and email me. My email address is dmcfa4@uis.edu. Again, that's dmcfa4@uis.edu. And I'm happy to help you and kind of guide you through the application process, or just answer some questions particular to the School of Politics and International Affairs. Thank you again to Dr. Skinner. It was wonderful to get a chance to chat with you. I can't wait to have more chats in the future. And thank you to you for continuing to listen to these shows and to listen to the interviews that we have, particularly with our faculty members, as we continue to move forward on the podcast for the School of Politics and International Affairs at UIS. Just want to say thank you so much, and hope you have the rest of a great day or night, or whenever you happen to be listening to this. Goodbye.